Before the Fellowship was the greatest story you've never heard. I'm Dan.
I'm Greg.
I'm Cameron.
Join us as we read and react to the Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. Last time we read about the Valar making war upon Melkor. They captured and tried him, and he is bound in a prison of Mandos for 3 ages. The Valar decided to invite the elves to join them in Valinor. 3 kings of the elves, Ingwë, Finwë, and Elwë, are made ambassadors to the Valar for the most part, and for the most part follow Oromë to Valinor. Those who choose to stay behind are called the Avari. Today we will continue with chapter 3 of the Quenta Silmarillion, and in our books we're at page 52 in the Quenta Silmarillion. The Eldar prepared now a great march from their first homes in the east, and they were arrayed in 3 hosts. The smallest host, and the first to set forth, was led by Ingwë, the most high lord of all the elvish race. He entered into Valinor and sits at the feet of the powers. And all elves revere his name, but he never came back, nor looked again upon Middle-earth. The Valinor were his people. They are the fair elves, and beloved of Manwë and Vada, and few among men have spoken with them. Next came the Noldor, a name of wisdom, the people of Finwë. They are the deep elves, the friends of Olwë, and they are renowned in song, for they fought and labored long and grievously in the northern lands of old. The greatest host came last, and they are named the Teleri, for they tarried on the road, and were not wholly of a mind to pass from the dusk to the light of Valinor. In water they had great delight, and those that came at last to the western shores were enamored of the sea. The sea elves, therefore, they became in the land of Aman. The Falmari, for they made music besides the breaking waves. 2 lords they had, for their numbers were great. Elwë Singolo, which signifies grey mantle, and Olwë his brother. These were the 3 kindreds of the Eldar. I don't even know how to say that, sorry. Who, passing at length into the uttermost west in the days of the trees, are called the Calaquendi, elves of the light. But others of the Eldar there were who set out indeed upon the westward march, but became lost upon the long road, or turned aside, or lingered on the shores of Middle-earth. And these were for the most part of the kindred of the Teleri, as is told hereafter. They dwelt by the sea, or wandered in the woods and the mountains of the world, yet their hearts were turned towards the west. Those elves the Calaquendi called the Umanya, since they came never to the land of Aman and the blessed realm. But the Umanya and the Avari alike they called the Moraquendi, elves of the darkness, for they never beheld the light that was before the sun and moon. It is told that when the host of the Eldali departed from Cuivienen, Oromë rode at their head upon Nahar, his white horse shod with gold, and passing northwards about the sea of Helkar, they turned towards the west. Before them great clouds hung still back in the north, above the ruins of war, and the stars in that region were hidden. Then not a few grew afraid and repented, and turned back, and were forgotten. Long and slow was the march of the Eldar into the west, for the leagues of Middle-earth were uncounted, and weary, and pathless. Nor did the Eldar desire to hasten, for they were filled with wonder at all that they saw, and by many lands and rivers they wished to abide. And though all were yet willing to wander, many feared rather their journey's end than hoped for it. Therefore, whenever Oromë departed, having at other times to heed, they halted and went forward no more until he returned to guide them. And it came to pass, after many years of journeying in this manner, that the Eldar took their course through a forest. They came to a great river, wider than they had yet seen, and beyond it were mountains whose sharp horns seemed to pierce the realms of the stars. This river, it is said, was even the river which was after called Anduin the Great. It was ever the frontier of the westlands of Middle-earth. But the mountains were Hithagale, towers of the mist, upon the borders of Eriador. Yet they were taller and more terrible in those days, and were reared by Melkor to hinder the riding of Oromë. Now the Teleri abode long on the east bank of that river, and wished to remain there. But the Vanya and the Noldor passed over it, and Oromë led them into the pastures of the mountains. And when Oromë was gone forward with the Teleri, looked upon the shadowy heights, and they were afraid. Then one arose in the host of Olwë, which was the hindmost on the road. Lenwë he was called. He forsook much of the westward march, and led away a numerous people southwards down the great river, and they passed out of the knowledge of their kin until long years were past. Those were the Nandor, and they became a people apart, unlike their kin, save that they loved water and dwelt most beside falls and running streams. Greater knowledge they had of living things, tree and herb, bird and beast, than all other elves. In after years, Denethor, son of Lenwë, turned again west at last, and led a part of that people over the mountains into Beleriand, ere the rising of the moon. At length the Vanya and the Noldor came over Eredluin, the blue mountains between Eriador and the westernmost land of Middle-earth, which the Elves after named Beleriand. The foremost companies passed over the Vale of Sirion and came down to the shores of the great sea between Drengist and the Bay of Belar. But when they beheld it, great fear came upon them, and many withdrew into the woods and the highlands of Beleriand. Then Oromë departed and returned to Valinor to seek counsel of Manwë, and left them. And the host of the Teleri passed over the misty mountains, and crossed the wide lands of Eriador, being urged on by Elwë Singolo, for he was eager to return to Valinor, and the light that he beheld, and he wished not to be sundered from the Noldor, for he had great friendship with Finwë their lord. Thus, after many years, the Teleri also came at last over Eredluin into the eastern regions of Beleriand. There they halted and dwelt a while beyond the great river Gelion. That's the end of chapter 3.
I think you got, after having such a great reading with all the feisty dialogue, you got just the traveling narrative.
Yeah, what's the opposite of feisty? Antonyms for feisty.
Dull.
I need to Google that.
You should put your little chart up again from your book.
It made me think of mountains, though. It made me think of valleys, and it made me think of like paths and rivers.
Yeah.
And so it was
if you're a hiker, this was your favorite chapter, probably.
Are we doing the elves right now?
Yeah, the elves. This is
Here, I'll solo you again.
So this is kind of what we're seeing that was just described, these different groups of elves.
The main ones are those three under the Eldar, right?
Right.
right? Okay.
Oh yeah, so the Vanyar, the Noldor, and the Teleri.
Yes. And so this is a good chart in that it helps
Yeah.
understand who went where and who didn't. And the kind of main two groups of them that we end up with are the Calaquendi who make it to Valinor, and the Morroquendi who never do make it to Valinor.
Yeah, so there's a lot of divisions. Like
Right.
some just don't even try to go. Those are the Avari. Some try to go and fail, and those are the Umanyar. But all of them that don't end up there are the Morroquendi.
Right.
All of them that do end up there are the Calaquendi. That's really helpful to keep in mind.
Where are the majority of people?
I think the Noldor and the Calaquendi.
I think the reading said the Teleri were the most.
Yeah, I forget.
Oh,
I forget who it is.
The most
Okay.
numerous, and so they took up the rear, and that's why many of them didn't make it.
Okay.
But that doesn't exactly explain the split, but the numerical split between Calaquendi and Morroquendi.
Why did Teleri split? Some of them are Calaquendi and some of them are Morroquendi.
Yeah, some of them did make it all the way to Aman or to.
And some of them like tarried, right? They like hung out in the woods and stuff and didn't want to walk the whole way.
Yeah.
Either got scared of Valinor or wearied, or
they
curious.
heard the song of what's his name of the sea. They heard "My Heart Will Go On" and they didn't.
that is the sea song. That's right.
Yeah, they didn't want to leave this. They became enamored of the sea, and
That's
now they're
right,
sea elves.
yeah.
I like that. There's just different motivations for them staying. Some of them were afraid. Some of them were tired and lazy.
Some of them doubted.
Yeah, but some of them were just drawn to the beauty of Middle Earth, even in the darkness.
But moving forward, because the story takes place in Valinor in the next chapters, it's important.
Take me off full screen.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
Here, I'll just put myself full screen then.
Okay. Yeah.
Because the story takes place in Valinor over the next few chapters, it's important to keep in mind the different names of those who are in Valinor. So it's not just the Calaquendi, but so the Noldor and the Teleri and the Vanyar. So those will be, keep those in mind, and maybe just quickly I'll go through them based on what we read here. The Vanyar were the fair elves. I think they were the first. The Vanyar were the first ones. Among them is Ingwë, who is called the Most High Lord of all the Elvish race. So you can imagine like talking to Legolas and be like, Ingwë, he's pretty cool. He's like, yeah, he's the best. So they just have him in his mind as the best, the highest.
If you say, "Who's your daddy?" This will be Ingwë.
Son of an Ingwë. And then the Noldor are next. The people of Finwë. Finwë is going to be really important. I don't think Ingwë has a lot of. So
I was thinking about that. I think he kind of, he's not, in a sense, he's not that interesting because he just loves Valinor so much that he just never ever leaves again.
Yeah,
And
we don't hear any stories of him because
Right.
he just hangs out there, and it's a mystery. So we have the Vanyar, who are the first, who have Ingwë as their king. Then the Noldor, who have Finwë as their king, and Finwë is going to be really important. And then the greatest host came last. So yeah, most of them are the Teleri, the ones that tarried on the road, and some of them split off and never made it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's just a good, helpful picture.
Yeah, and they're led by Elwë, who's one of the 3 ambassadors, but also his brother Olwë. Elwë, Singolo, and Olwë.
Oh, interesting. His name, Elwë Singolo, signifies gray mantle. Isn't that similar to...
That's what it says in the book. It reminded me of, obviously, it makes you think of Gandalf.
What does the encyclopedia say about Elwë Singolo?
It's a good question.
Shout out to the Encyclopedia of Arda.
I'll show you the app in a second on my screen because apparently my screen can show it pretty well. All right. Let's see if we can get it without reflection. Nope. We cannot. It's called the Encyclopedia of Arda. It's about $5 probably on your app store. You can get it online on a website for free, but the app is pretty good. I've had it for 10 years. I think I've had it for more than 10 years. And I've just loved it. It's just been so good, and it's almost essential for reading along with the Silmarillion, because you can just like plug in the thing you're reading about and figure out like, okay, who's Elwë Singolo, and it's going to give you the dates when this person was around, what race they're from, their elves, division, Sindar, pronunciation, Elwë, which we've been pronouncing wrong, meaning
Elwë.
star person, other names, Elwë Thingol, titles, Greycloak, the Hidden King, King of Doriath, Lord of Beleriand, Singolo. It's just good. It's great. It's awesome. It's gonna
So
help.
it seems like the connection to Gandalf is just accidental. There's no like plot connection to him.
No, yeah. It's just
Because there's so many cool names that we're discovering and we can read their meanings. Can we commit to choosing a new name by the end of this podcast? Not this podcast, but the end
choosing a new name for what?
for our own identities. So right
Mine
now,
is
I'm
a new
Camway.
name.
I'm
You mean
Camway.
like make
Yours
a
is a
name?
new name. We're
No,
all
not
new
make a
names.
name. Discover a new name. Be like, that's the coolest name. The meaning is so, it fits me so well, or my ideals so well. By the end of getting through the Silmarillion, let's
Are
pick
you
a new
unhappy
name.
with who you are? You just want to
Camway
change?
is really
you wanna
good.
transition
Sometimes
to
the name
something else?
change is important, you know. To,
We need a new
fulfill who we're
name.
supposed to be.
Because we're on this journey and we can't stay the same that we were at the beginning. Camway, I'm just like Manway's little brother that no one ever talks about.
You
And I'm
guys
always in
don't
it.
even know who Dan Rod is. Dan Rod is his real name. You don't even know who he is. I had to tell you. And he appears in the Two Towers pretty significantly.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Legolas is just an image of Orlando Bloom with my face photoshopped
Right.
into it.
Which are the best of both worlds, really.
Yeah.
Do you still have the image? I was muted.
I do somewhere, I think. I'll find it.
Next
before- I'll
time.
find
Next
it
time.
before,
Next
yeah.
time. Print it off. Show us. It's amazing. It's the best image
I
you'll
do have
ever
it somewhere, and I will find it.
see. Mid-journey, step aside.
Yeah. Well, just to, I don't know, wrap up some of this sundering of elves talk, like, the names are important, but we'll do our best to just kind of keep you updated on who's who and clarify. And if you do have the book, those charts are really, really helpful. I was consulting those a lot when I first read it. Some of the names are less important than others, like, and you don't know until you read it, but, you know, like we mentioned, Ingwë doesn't have a large part in the story. So don't worry about remembering all the names, because we'll try to catch you up when we read something important or remind you who someone is.
Yeah, this is helpful for me too, because just reading it alone, a lot of these things just fly over my head. But taking our time and talking through the characters is really helpful. And I'm going to have more questions answered going through it.
You know, something funny
Still
too, and
flying
maybe
over
just
my
to,
head.
Huh?
It is still flying over my head.
That's all right.
No,
I
it's
need to
not,
repeat
Dan.
that 3
Tell me,
times.
Dan, I have a pop quiz for you.
No, stop it. Stop it.
Who
Stop it.
came last? Which elves came last?
Stop
to
it.
Valinor?
Stop it. Stop it. Hey, that's not fair. I was the one who just read it. And everybody knows that when you read something, you're not paying attention.
Okay. Was it the
Right.
Noldor or the Teleri?
Everyone knows.
Everyone knows that. The Teleri tarried.
Shh. The
Teleri,
Teleri. Yeah, because
tarried.
it sounds like tarrying.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember
that's right.
that from the book that I read.
Yeah, that's right. One thing I just wanted to mention, you know, we spent so much time early on reading about all the different Valar and the Valier, and many of them won't even be mentioned again. Like the ones that we're hearing about now are the ones that are kind of more important for the narrative. And that's kind of how it is with a lot of these names too. Like as we go, some of them we won't really hear about again, but the important ones to remember will keep coming up and they'll be easier to remember. Even for you, Dan.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for that.
You're the like listener surrogate, right? You're the one who's like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's good. People connect to you. They're not going to connect to Cameron or me.
Yeah, I know. I'm unconnectable. So I've read this is my third time going through it, and I'm picking up new things. But like I was saying, going through it in bite-sized chunks like we're doing is really helping me retain it a lot better.
Yeah, I agree.
Tell us what would be, as a listener, what would be helpful if we actually focused on, or is it just helpful that we read it and then just talk crap afterwards? Like, tell us, is this something that you want to share with your kids? And if it is, we'll keep it, I guess, under PG. What's the US?
What's the PG? Let's
PG-13?
be PG.
So in the UK is different though. It's like what do you call the like lowest bar?
G.
Guidance.
General audience.
General audience. Okay, it's not consistent. I think in the UK, I think it was U, as in universal. Anyone can listen to it. And then there's PG, but we don't say until you're 13.
PG will have like potty jokes in it.
Okay.
It'll have like someone steps on your toe.
I think we'll talk about
Wile E. Coyote blows up someone.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Tell us what you think is best.
Do you want us to be PG or R? Let us know.
Yeah, those are the only two options apparently. But either way, if you like what you hear, go ahead and rate us 3 Silmarils out of 3. And you'll find out later in the book why we keep saying that and we think we're so clever. Follow us everywhere at Before the Fellowship and send any comments or questions to beforethefellowship@gmail.com. Address it Cameron O'Hearn if you wish to have any criticisms. And Sir Daniel Driver, if you have anything that you want to say that's nice to us.
And Sir Greg, if you need fashion advice.
Yeah, if you need fashion advice, Greg can tell you everything you need to purchase a white t-shirt. Otherwise, join us next week as we read the greatest story you've never heard, but you've partially heard now. The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien.